The bass drops like a hammer against her sternum, and Elena Vance knows, with a kind of bone-deep certainty that comes from 2 years of practiced paranoia, that she's being watched. The Shadow Realm nightclub pulses around her in waves of neon purple and electric blue, bodies pressed so close she can smell cologne mixing with sweat and expensive perfume. She'd come here because it was supposed to be safe. Anonymous. A place where a woman trying to disappear could lose herself in the crowd for just one night, pretend she was normal, pretend the past wasn't always breathing down her neck. But then she sees him. Victor. Her ex-husband stands 30 feet away across the packed dance floor, and the recognition hits her like ice water in her veins. His eyes lock onto hers through the strobing lights, and there's nothing human in that gaze. It's the look of a predator who's finally cornered his prey after a long, patient hunt. His mouth curves into something that might be a smile on anyone else, but on Victor Kane, it's a promise of pain. 2 years. 2 years of burner phones and fake names and sleeping with a chair wedged under the door handle. 2 years of looking over her shoulder in grocery stores and changing her hair color and never, ever staying in one place too long. And it had all just shattered in the span of a heartbeat. The music pounds louder, or maybe that's just her pulse thundering in her ears. Victor moves toward her, and the crowd seems to part for him like they can sense the danger radiating off him in waves. Elena's legs lock up. Run, her brain screams. Do something. But her body won't obey, frozen in the amber of pure terror. His hand slides inside his jacket. The glint of steel catches the strobe lights, a blade long and wicked and familiar. She'd seen that knife before, pressed against her throat in their kitchen 2 years ago when she'd finally worked up the courage to say she was leaving. The restraining order had been a joke. The new identity had bought her time. But time apparently had just run out. Victor's lips move, mouthing words she can't hear over the music. Found you. Something breaks inside her. Not breaks, shatters. And suddenly Elena is moving, shoving through the crush of dancing bodies with the desperation of a drowning woman fighting for air. People curse as she elbows past them, drinks spilling, but she doesn't care. She just needs to get away, needs to find an exit, needs to. Her foot catches on something and she's falling forward, stumbling through a velvet rope into a cordoned-off VIP section she didn't even know was there. Strong hands catch her before she hits the ground, steadying her with an ease that speaks of absolute control. "Please," she gasps, looking up into the face of her unexpected savior. "Please, you have to help me." The man holding her is stunning in a way that momentarily shorts out her panic. Sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that miss nothing, an expensive suit that fits like it was painted on. There's an aura of danger around him too, but it's different from Victor's, controlled, purposeful, leashed. Then she sees Victor break through the crowd behind her, knife raised high, his face twisted with rage and triumph, and she realizes this is it. This is how she dies. In a nightclub surrounded by people who won't even notice until it's too late. But the man holding her doesn't flinch. His eyes flick past her to Victor, and something cold and absolute settles over his features. He doesn't raise his voice, doesn't even move, but suddenly there are men everywhere. Security, she realizes, materializing from the shadows like they'd been waiting for this exact moment. They intercept Victor mid-lunge, hands clamping down on his wrists, the knife clattering to the floor as screams finally erupt around them. The strobes catch the chaos in freeze frames. Victor struggling, shouting something she can't hear, security dragging him backward, people scattering, the knife spinning across polished concrete. And through it all, the man holding her doesn't let go. He looks down at her, and when he speaks, his voice cuts through the noise like a blade of its own, low, calm, absolutely commanding. "You're safe now." Hit subscribe right now to find out how Elena turns pure terror into unexpected power. Drop a comment below. Where in the world are you watching from? And be brutally honest, what would you do if your ex pulled a knife on you in the middle of a packed nightclub? Elena's hands won't stop shaking. She sits in a private room somewhere above the nightclub's main floor, the bass still thrumming through the walls but muted now, distant. Someone had given her water. She can't remember drinking it, but the glass is empty in her trembling fingers. The man who'd caught her, whose security team had disarmed Victor like they'd done it 1,000 times before, stands by the window with his back to her, phone pressed to his ear. He speaks in rapid Korean, his tone clipped and authoritative. Even without understanding the words, Elena can tell he's someone used to being obeyed. She should leave. She should thank him and disappear back into the network of safe houses and fake identities she'd built so carefully. But her legs still feel like water, and besides, where would she even go now? Victor had found her. Which meant her current identity was compromised. Which meant she was back to square one, except this time without the element of surprise. The man ends his call and turns to face her, and Elena notices for the first time the pendant that had slipped out from beneath her shirt during the chaos. Her hand flies up to tuck it away, but it's too late. His gaze has already locked onto the intricate silver design hanging against her collarbone. Something shifts in his expression. Surprise, recognition, something sharper. Where did you get that? His English is perfect, barely touched by an accent. Elena's fingers close protectively around the pendant. It's one of the few things she'd refused to leave behind when she fled Victor, a rare piece she'd acquired during her research fellowship in Seoul 5 years ago. The antique dealer who'd sold it to her had called it a cipher pendant, used by scholars in the Joseon dynasty to encode sensitive correspondence. I bought it in Seoul, she says carefully. Why? He crosses the room in 3 strides, movements fluid and controlled, and crouches before her chair so they're at eye level. Up close he's even more striking, and more dangerous. This is a man who knows violence intimately, who wears power like a second skin. My name is Ji-Hoon Kim, he says. And that pendant belongs to my family. Elena's breath catches. That's impossible. The dealer said. The dealer was selling stolen property. His gaze doesn't waver. That particular piece disappeared from my family's estate in Gyeonggi province 20 years ago during a theft. The cipher pattern is unique to the Kim clan. I would know. I wore its twin until I was 12 years old. She should argue, should defend her legitimate purchase, but something in his absolute certainty makes her pause. She'd studied Korean cipher systems for her doctorate, had written her dissertation on encoded historical texts. She knows this pendant's value, both monetary and historical. I didn't steal it, she says quietly. I know. Ji-Hoon's lips curve in something that's not quite a smile. My men ran your identification while we were securing your situation. Dr. Elena Vance, formerly Elena Marsh. Cryptographer specializing in ancient Korean cipher systems. Published 3 papers on Joseon-era encoded diplomatic correspondence. 2 years ago, you disappeared from Boston after filing a restraining order against your ex-husband Victor Kane. Cold spreads through her chest. You had no right. The man who just tried to kill you in my establishment had every right to force my hand. Ji-Hoon interrupts, voice sharp. Victor Kane. Investment banker, or so his official records claim. Unofficially? He's been flagged by Interpol for suspected money laundering and has known ties to Russian organized crime through his former employer. He's also violated your restraining order 17 times in the past 2 years, though you've never reported it because you've been living under assumed names. Can you even imagine having your worst nightmare laid out in front of you by a stranger who somehow knows every detail you've been running from? Elena's throat tightens. What do you want? The same thing you do, Ji-Hoon says. For Victor Kane to never touch you again. Your security already? We'll hold him for a few hours at most. He'll make bail by morning. He has expensive lawyers and friends in useful places. Ji-Hoon leans back slightly, giving her space but maintaining eye contact. But I can offer you something better than temporary safety. Something permanent. Elena's laugh comes out bitter. There's no such thing as permanent safety from a man like Victor. There is from a man like me. The words hang in the air between them, heavy with implication. Elena studies Ji-Hoon's face, seeing the absolute conviction there. This isn't a man who makes promises he can't keep. Why would you help me? She asks. Because you possess skills I need, he says bluntly. And because you're wearing a piece of my family's history that I've spent years trying to repatriate. He stands, moving back to the window, and for a moment his carefully controlled expression slips into something older, heavier. My family lost everything when I was young, our estate, our heritage, our honor. I've spent the last 15 years reclaiming what was stolen from us. Artifacts, historical texts, cultural treasures that were looted and sold on black markets around the world. Elena's academic instincts perk up despite herself. Repatriation is legal work. Museums do it all the time through proper channels. Proper channels work for items with clean provenance, Ji-Hoon says. They don't work for pieces that have passed through criminal hands, been laundered through private collections, or exist in legal gray areas. For those, you need someone willing to operate in the shadows. Understanding dawns slowly, cold and certain. You're talking about theft. I'm talking about justice. He turns back to face her, and there's steel in his voice now. Every piece I recover is one less part of my country's soul sitting in some corrupt collector's vault. But I need authentication. I need someone who can verify what's real, what's fake, what's worth pursuing. Someone who understands the ciphers and codes that were used to mark legitimate royal or scholarly pieces. You want me to be your expert. Elena's mind races ahead, seeing the shape of what he's offering. In exchange for what, exactly? Protection, Ji-Hoon says simply. The kind that doesn't depend on restraining orders or police reports or hoping Victor doesn't find your next hiding place. The kind that comes from having resources, networks, and a reputation that makes people think twice before crossing me. He pauses, letting that sink in. Stay under my protection. Work with me to authenticate the pieces I recover. And in return, Victor Kane will never be able to touch you again. It's insane. It's criminal. It goes against every principle she's built her academic career on. But when Elena closes her eyes, she sees Victor's face across the dance floor. Sees the knife glinting in the strobes. Feels the terror that's been her constant companion for 2 years, the exhaustion of always running, always hiding, always looking over her shoulder. I need to think, she says. Ji-Hoon nods, pulling out a card and setting it on the table beside her. You have until morning. But Elena? He waits until she meets his eyes. Victor knows where you live now. He knows what name you're using, what you look like, where you go. You can walk out of here and try to disappear again. Change your hair, change your city, change your life for the 3rd or 4th or 10th time. Or you can stay and let me end this once and for all. He heads for the door, then pauses with his hand on the handle. That pendant, he says quietly. It was my mother's. She wore it every day until the night she died protecting me during the raid that destroyed my family. I don't want it back. You acquired it legitimately and it clearly means something to you. But I'd like to know it's being worn by someone who understands its value. Someone who appreciates the weight of history. Then he's gone, leaving Elena alone with her racing thoughts and the antique cipher pendant heavy against her heart. She lifts the silver piece, examining the intricate geometric patterns she'd always assumed were purely decorative. But now, with Ji-Hoon's words echoing in her mind, she sees them differently, sees the subtle encoding, the mathematical precision, the way certain angles repeat in sequences that speak of intentional design. Her academic training wars with her survival instincts. Working with Ji-Hoon means stepping into a criminal world, compromising her ethics, becoming complicit in illegal activity. But staying in her current life means running forever. Means never using her real name again, never publishing research, never having a career or friends or anything resembling normalcy. Means waiting for the day when Victor finds her again and his knife doesn't miss. Outside the window, Seoul's neon-soaked skyline glitters like a promise, or a threat. Elena's reflection stares back at her from the glass, and for the first time in 2 years, she sees something other than fear in her own eyes. She sees possibility. Dawn breaks cold and gray over Seoul as Elena steps out of the taxi in front of a gleaming residential tower in Gangnam. She hadn't gone back to her apartment. Ji-Hoon had been right about that much. Instead, she'd spent the night in a hotel room paid for by one of his men, a silent bodyguard who'd appeared outside the nightclub's private room and hadn't left her side since. The card Ji-Hoon gave her has only an address and a single line, Penthouse. When you're ready. Apparently she's ready. The elevator rises smoothly to the 48th floor, and Elena watches the city shrink beneath her through the glass walls. Her reflection looks haggard, dark circles under her eyes, hair still mussed from last night's chaos, the pendant visible against her wrinkled shirt. She looks like exactly what she is. A woman at the end of her rope, grasping at a lifeline that might strangle her. The elevator opens directly into Ji-Hoon's penthouse, and Elena's breath catches. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame a panoramic view of Seoul's skyline. The space is massive yet surprisingly understated, clean lines, dark wood, carefully chosen art pieces that even her untrained eye can tell are museum quality. But it's the far wall that stops her in her tracks. Illuminated by subtle track lighting, a collection of Korean artifacts is displayed with the reverence of a private gallery. Celadon pottery from the Goryeo dynasty. Bronze Buddhist sculptures. Painted folding screens depicting mountain landscapes. And everywhere, small placards with handwritten notes in Korean and English documenting each piece's provenance and recovery story. Do you know what these are worth? Elena spins to find Ji-Hoon emerging from a hallway to her left. He's traded last night's suit for dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. Somehow he looks even more dangerous in casual clothes. On the black market, she says. Millions? In cultural value? Incalculable. Correct. Ji-Hoon moves to stand beside her, gaze on the artifacts rather than her face. The Celadon vase was looted from a provincial museum during the Korean War. The Buddha was sold by a corrupt temple administrator in 1987. The screen was in a Japanese collector's vault for 50 years, bought from a smuggler who'd stolen it during the occupation. He turns to her then, and there's something raw in his expression. Every piece here has a story. Every piece represents a wound in my country's cultural memory. And every piece was recovered through methods that would never hold up in a court of law. Elena steps closer to the display, her professional curiosity overriding caution. The Celadon vase in particular draws her eye. Its distinctive blue-green glaze is exquisite, the incised crane pattern speaking of 11th or 12th century craftsmanship. She can see faint marks near the base that look like authentication seals. How do you know they're real? She asks. I have experts, art historians, museum consultants who work quietly for fees. But with increasing frequency, I'm encountering pieces that carry encoded authentication markers, ciphers etched into bases, hidden marks that require specialized knowledge to read. That's where you come in. Ji-Hoon moves to a secure panel in the wall, entering a code. A section slides open to reveal a climate-controlled case containing a scroll. He removes it with careful hands and brings it to the large table dominating the center of the room. This arrived 3 days ago, he says, gently unrolling the aged paper. It was offered to me as a royal decree from King Jeongjo, circa 1780. The seller wants 2 million won. But something feels wrong about it. Elena leans over the scroll, her trained eye immediately catching the classical Chinese characters and formal layout. But Ji-Hoon is right, something is off. The paper quality is correct for the period, and the calligraphy is expert level. A good forgery if that's what this is. Then she sees it. Woven into the decorative border, so subtle you'd miss it without knowing what to look for, is a sequence of geometric shapes. The same kind of cipher pattern as her pendant. This is encoded, she breathes, excitement sparking through exhaustion. See here? These aren't decorative elements, they're an authentication cipher. Royal documents sometimes carried these as a way to verify legitimacy. She pulls out her phone, opening the specialized app she developed during her dissertation research. Her fingers trace the pattern, inputting the sequence. If this is genuine, the cipher should resolve to a specific phrase or number sequence that corresponds to the document's date and the royal seal being used. She waits as the algorithm processes. And if it's a forgery, the patterns will be decorative but meaningless, or they'll resolve to nonsense. The app chimes. Elena reads the decoded result and feels a chill. It's fake, she says flatly. The cipher resolves to a date 15 years after King Jeongjo's death. Whoever forged this did their homework on period-appropriate materials and calligraphy, but they didn't understand the authentication system. They just copied patterns from other documents without understanding what they meant. Ji-Hoon's expression darkens. The seller claimed impeccable provenance. A private collection in Busan, family estate liquidation. Then either the seller doesn't know it's fake, or they're counting on you not being able to verify the cipher. Elena straightens, meeting his gaze. This is what you need me for, isn't it? Not just authentication but the ability to read the hidden language that separates real treasures from clever copies. Yes. Ji-Hoon carefully rolls up the scroll, his movements controlled but tense. In my world, being caught with a forged piece doesn't just mean wasted money. It means lost reputation, damaged relationships, and in some cases open warfare between organizations who feel they've been cheated. He returns the scroll to its case and turns back to her. I need your expertise, Elena. But more than that, I need your integrity. Everything in this room, every piece I pursue, it matters because it's real. Because it represents something that was stolen and deserves to come home. If I start trafficking in fakes, I become just another criminal profiting off my country's pain. There's passion in his voice now, conviction that speaks of deep personal stakes. Elena thinks of the mother he mentioned, the pendant that was hers, the family destroyed when he was just a child. Tell me what happened to your family, she says quietly. Ji-Hoon is silent for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then he moves to the windows, staring out at the city. My father was a prosecutor, he says finally. Organized crime division. He was building a case against one of the largest criminal syndicates in Korea. Evidence of corruption that went all the way to government officials. They offered him money first. Then threats. He refused both. His hand clenches into a fist against the glass. So they came to our estate one night and burned it to the ground. My mother hid me in a passage beneath the house. One of the old smugglers' tunnels the estate was built over. She was wearing that pendant when she sealed me in and went back for my father. Elena's throat tightens. How old were you? 12. He turns to face her, and there's old pain in his eyes, calcified into something harder. I listened to my home burn above me. Listened to the screams. When it was finally quiet, I crawled out to find everything destroyed. My parents, our servants, the house itself, all ash. And the artifacts my family had preserved for generations? Looted. Gone. Scattered to collectors and black markets within a week. I'm sorry, Elena whispers. I don't want your pity. His voice is sharp, then softens. I want your help. I spent years building this organization, these resources, this reputation. Not for power, not for money, for this. For the chance to bring back what was stolen. To restore what was lost. He crosses back to her, and Elena sees the intensity blazing in his gaze. You asked why I would help you. The truth? Because I understand what it means to be hunted. To live in fear of someone who should never have power over you. Victor took your freedom, your sense of safety, your ability to live your own life. His jaw tightens. The men who destroyed my family took everything I was meant to be. But I found a way to take something back. Let me help you do the same. The offer hangs between them, heavier now with the weight of shared trauma. Elena thinks of her own lost years, the career derailed, the constant fear. What exactly would this arrangement look like? She asks. You stay here in the penthouse. It's secure. Biometric locks, private security, no one gets up that elevator without clearance. Ji-Hoon gestures to the space around them. You'll have access to my collection, my resources, my network of contacts. When I acquire a piece or receive an offer, you authenticate it. You teach me to read the ciphers myself, to understand the markers. You help me build a legitimate scholarly foundation for what I'm doing. And Victor will be monitored 24 hours a day. If he approaches you, my people will know before he's within 100 meters. If he violates his bail conditions, we'll ensure he goes back to prison. And if he tries anything more aggressive. Ji-Hoon's expression turns cold. Let's just say I have resources that the legal system lacks. It should terrify her, that casual implication of violence. Maybe it would have before Victor. Before 2 years of running and hiding and feeling hunted. I'll need guarantees, Elena says slowly. If I'm going to compromise my ethics by working in a criminal enterprise. Gray market, Ji-Hoon corrects. There's a difference. Fine. Gray market. I need to know that what we're doing actually serves a purpose. That we're not just stealing to sell, but genuinely trying to repatriate cultural heritage. I want documentation, I want transparency about where pieces end up, and I want a say in which pursuits we take on. Something that might be respect flickers across Ji-Hoon's face. Agreed. And you'll have your own space, your own privacy. This is a professional arrangement, Elena. Not a cage. She thinks of her cramped studio apartment with its locks and security bars. Thinks of changing her name again, starting over somewhere new, waiting for Victor to find her one more time. One more thing, she says. When you say permanent protection, I need to understand what that means. How long does this arrangement last? What happens if I want out? Ji-Hoon meets her gaze steadily. The protection is permanent regardless of how long you work with me. If you want to leave tomorrow, next month, next year, you can. But Victor Kane will remain a monitored threat as long as he poses a danger to you. That's not conditional on your employment. That's... He pauses, choosing words carefully. Call it the price of you helping me identify that forged scroll. You've already proven your value. Elena looks back at the collection on the wall, at the tangible evidence of one man's obsession with justice and restoration. Then she looks at Ji-Hoon, dangerous, driven, but somehow honorable in his own twisted way. What would you do in her place? Trade one form of captivity for another, or take a chance on an alliance that might actually give you power instead of just safety? She thinks of her pendant, of Ji-Hoon's mother who died wearing its twin. Thinks of the cipher patterns that have been her life's work, now suddenly relevant in ways she never imagined. I want to see my apartment, she says finally. I have research materials, books, my computer. If I'm going to do this, I need my tools. Ji-Hoon nods. We'll send a team today. They'll retrieve everything you need and sweep for any surveillance devices Victor might have planted. He extends his hand. Do we have a deal, Dr. Vance? Elena stares at his offered hand. This is the moment. The point of no return. Once she shakes, she's not just accepting protection. She's joining his world, becoming part of something that exists in the shadows between legal and criminal. But she's so tired of running. So tired of being afraid. She takes his hand. His grip is firm, warm, steady. "We have a deal," she says. "But I'm calling you Ji-Hoon, not Mr. Kim. If we're going to work together, let's skip the formalities." His lips curve in a real smile this time, transforming his severe features into something almost playful. "Then you should call me what my friends do." "Hoon." "Friends?" Elena raises an eyebrow. "Are we friends now?" "No," Hoon says, still smiling. "But give it time." 3 days into her new life, Elena stands in what Hoon calls the archive, a temperature-controlled room filled with pieces waiting for authentication. She's surrounded by centuries of history, and she can't shake the feeling that she's made a terrible mistake. The scroll on the table before her is genuine, she's certain of that. A Buddhist sutra from the Goryeo period, its marginalia containing encoded notations that mark it as having belonged to a specific temple in Gyeongju. The cipher reads clearly: "Once you know the system, property of Bulguksa, dedicated 1157, blessed by Abbot Wonhyo." Which means Ji-Hoon, Hoon, is about to return a 900-year-old religious text to its rightful home through channels that definitely aren't legal. "You're frowning." Elena looks up to find Hoon in the doorway, 2 cups of tea in his hands. He started bringing her tea around this time every afternoon, a quiet ritual that's become oddly comforting. Today it's green tea with a subtle jasmine note, served in cups that are probably themselves valuable antiques. "I'm thinking," she corrects. Dangerously from the look of it. He sets her tea down and leans against the table, studying her face. "Talk to me." Elena gestures at the scroll. "This is real. The authentication markers are clear. It belongs to Bulguksa Temple. It should go back to them." "It will." "Through what method? Are you going to break into wherever it's currently held and steal it?" The current holder is a private collector in Tokyo who purchased it through an auction house in the 1990s. The temple's claim was rejected because they couldn't prove the piece was taken illegally. The Japanese colonial period was a legal gray area for cultural property. Hoon's voice is matter-of-fact. "So yes, I'm going to steal it. Then I'm going to ensure it anonymously finds its way back to the temple with full authentication documentation." "That's still theft." "Is it?" Hoon challenges. "The Japanese government stole it first. The collector is in possession of stolen property. I'm just correcting the record." Elena sets down her tea harder than necessary. "And you're comfortable making that determination? Deciding what's justice and what's just criminal activity dressed up in noble intentions?" Hoon is quiet for a moment, his dark eyes unreadable. Then he straightens and moves to the window. "My father used to say that laws are written by people in power to protect their own interests," he says. "The same governments that claim to uphold property rights are the ones who sanction the theft of Korea's cultural heritage during occupation periods. The same museums that claim to care about preservation are the ones who benefit from keeping looted artifacts behind their walls." He turns back to her. "So no, I'm not comfortable. But I'm not going to let perfect be the enemy of good either." "That's a rationalization," Elena argues. "Every criminal thinks they're justified. And every academic thinks that following proper channels will eventually lead to justice," Hoon counters. "How many formal repatriation requests do you think Bulguksa Temple has filed?" "Dozens. Hundreds." "How many have succeeded?" "A handful." "Do you know how long the average repatriation case takes through legal channels?" 15 years. "This scroll could sit in that collector's vault for longer than you or I will live." He's right, and Elena hates that he's right. She's read the studies, knows the statistics. International cultural property law is deliberately designed to favor current possessors, to make repatriation nearly impossible without ironclad provenance and cooperative institutions. "But where does it end?" she asks quietly. "If we decide that theft is acceptable when we deem the cause worthy, what's to stop anyone from justifying any crime the same way?" "Intent," Hoon says firmly. "I'm not selling these pieces for profit. I'm not adding them to my personal collection. Every item I recover goes back to its rightful home: temples, museums, cultural institutions in Korea. I don't even take credit for it." Elena studies his face, searching for cracks in his certainty. "And if you're wrong? If you return something that turns out to be a clever fake, or that actually has legitimate provenance with its current owner? That's why you're here." He moves back to the table, his expression intense. "You're my conscience, Elena. You verify authenticity. You research provenance. If you tell me a piece shouldn't be pursued, I don't pursue it. I'm not interested in being a thief for its own sake. I'm interested in justice." Before Elena can respond, Hoon's phone buzzes. He checks it and something cold settles over his features. "What is it?" she asks. "Victor made bail this morning," Hoon says, still reading. "He's claiming the nightclub incident was a misunderstanding. Says he was just trying to talk to you and my security overreacted. His lawyers got the charges reduced to disorderly conduct." Elena's blood runs cold. How is that possible? He had a knife, which his lawyers claim was a decorative letter opener he'd received as a gift earlier that evening and simply forgot he was carrying. 3 witnesses corroborated his story. Hoon's jaw tightens. Paid witnesses, obviously, but enough to create reasonable doubt. The room feels suddenly smaller, the walls pressing in. Elena grips the edge of the table to steady herself. "Hey." Hoon's hand settles on her shoulder, warm and grounding. "Look at me." She does, finding his dark eyes steady and certain. "He can't get to you here," Hoon says. "My security team has already implemented enhanced protocols. Victor is being surveilled 24/7. If he comes within 10 blocks of this building, we'll know." "He found me at the nightclub," Elena says, hearing the shake in her own voice. "After 2 years of being careful, of changing everything about myself, he still found me. Because you were alone." Hoon's voice is gentle but firm. "You're not alone anymore." Something in those words breaks through her rising panic. Elena takes a shaky breath, then another. Hoon doesn't move his hand from her shoulder, doesn't rush her, just waits while she steadies herself. "I'm sorry," she finally says. Don't apologize for being afraid of someone who's tried to kill you." Hoon's expression hardens. "Victor's freedom is temporary, I promise you that. My people are building a case that will actually stick. Financial crimes, ties to organized crime, evidence that can't be explained away by expensive lawyers. It will take time, but we'll get there." Elena nods, though she's not sure she believes it. Victor has always been untouchable, always managed to slip through consequences like water through a net. "In the meantime," Hoon continues, "I need you to be smart. No going out alone. Tell me or my security team where you need to go, and we'll make it happen safely." "And Elena?" He waits until she meets his eyes. "If you see him, if you even think you've seen him, you tell me immediately. Don't try to handle it yourself. Don't run. Just call." He pulls a phone from his pocket, not his usual device, but a sleek black model that looks military grade. "This is for you. It's encrypted, untraceable, and has a panic button built in. Press it and my entire security team will converge on your location within minutes. It's synced to the building systems, to my car, to every property I own." He places it in her hand. "Keep it on you always." Elena closes her fingers around the phone, feeling the weight of it. "You've thought of everything, haven't you?" "I've had to." There's something raw in his voice. "Survival in my world requires contingency plans for contingency plans." They stand there in the archive, surrounded by stolen history waiting to be returned home, and Elena realizes that she and Hoon aren't so different. Both of them are trying to reclaim what was taken. Both of them are operating outside the rules because the rules failed them. Maybe he's right. Maybe sometimes justice requires getting your hands dirty. The thought should horrify her more than it does. That night, Elena lies in the guest room that's become hers. A space 3 times the size of her old apartment, with a view that stretches to the Han River. She can't sleep. Victor's face keeps flashing through her mind, the knife glinting, his expression promising violence. Around 2 in the morning, she gives up and pads quietly through the dark penthouse. She's not surprised to find light spilling from under the archive door. Hoon sits at the main table, several documents spread before him, his shirt sleeves rolled up and his usually perfect hair slightly disheveled. He looks up when she enters, no surprise in his expression. "Can't sleep either?" he asks. "Every time I close my eyes, I see him." Elena moves to the table, studying the documents. They're provenance reports for a Celadon bowl, each page meticulously detailed. "What are you working on?" "Trying to verify a lead on a piece from the National Museum of Korea. It was stolen in 1950 during the war, showed up briefly in a Hong Kong auction in 1975, then disappeared again." He rubs his eyes tiredly. "The current owner claims his grandfather bought it legitimately, but the timeline doesn't match the records." Elena leans over his shoulder, scanning the documentation. "May I?" He gestures for her to sit. For the next hour, they work together in comfortable silence. Elena's trained eye catching discrepancies in dates and descriptions while Hoon cross-references against historical records. It's almost peaceful, this shared focus on something concrete and solvable. "You're good at this," Hoon says eventually. Not just the Cipher work, the investigation itself. The way you think through provenance chains, spot inconsistencies. I wrote my dissertation on tracking encoded text through black market channels, Elena says. You learn to think like both a scholar and a detective. Why Korean ciphers specifically? Elena's fingers drift unconsciously to her pendant. I spent a semester abroad in Seoul during my master's program. Fell in love with the city, the culture, the incredible depth of history that most Westerners know nothing about. When I started researching encoded historical documents, I realized how much Korean cipher tradition had been overlooked in Western scholarship. She smiles slightly. Plus, the mathematics of it fascinated me. Korean scholars developed incredibly sophisticated encoding systems centuries before similar methods appeared in Europe. And then you met Victor. The name drops like a stone into still water. Elena's smile fades. Then I met Victor, she confirms quietly. He seemed perfect at first. Charming, successful, interested in my work. By the time I realized what he really was, I was already married and isolated from everyone who might have helped me leave. Ji-Hoon is quiet for a moment. What made you finally run? Elena's hand trembles slightly as she reaches for her tea. He broke 3 of my ribs and told me next time he'd make sure I couldn't crawl away. She meets Ji-Hoon's gaze, seeing fury there. I waited until he left for a business trip, emptied our joint account and disappeared. I've been running ever since. You're not running anymore, Ji-Hoon says, and it sounds like a vow. The intensity in his eyes makes Elena's breath catch. There's something building between them, has been since that first moment in the nightclub. A recognition, maybe, of shared damage and shared determination to take back control. Tell me more about your mother, she says, partly to break the tension, partly because she genuinely wants to know. What was she like? Ji-Hoon's expression softens. Brilliant. She was a professor of Korean literature at Seoul National University, specialized in Joseon dynasty poetry. She used to say that every encoded text was really a love letter, a writer's love for their subject, their craft, their need to preserve something precious from those who might destroy it. He touches the documents on the table almost reverently. She taught me that cultural preservation isn't just about artifacts. It's about maintaining a connection to who we were, who we are, who we might become. She sounds remarkable. She was. And she would have liked you. Ji-Hoon meets her eyes. She believed that true scholarship required both rigor and courage. The rigor to pursue truth, and the courage to protect it even when the world makes that dangerous. Elena feels heat rise in her cheeks at the compliment. I'm not sure I've been particularly courageous. You survived 2 years against a man who wanted you dead. You walked into a stranger's home and agreed to work in a gray market to reclaim your safety. You're sitting here at 2 in the morning learning to navigate a criminal enterprise. Ji-Hoon's lips curve. Trust me, Elena. You're courageous. The way he says her name sends warmth through her chest. Dangerous warmth. We should get some sleep, she says, standing abruptly. If we're partners in crime now, we should probably be functional. Partners in justice, Ji-Hoon corrects, but he's smiling as he gathers the documents. Elena? She pauses at the door. I'm glad you're here, he says simply. Elena nods, not trusting herself to respond, and escapes to her room before she can do something stupid like admit she's glad too. A week slides into 2, and Elena finds herself settling into a rhythm she never expected to find comfortable. Mornings are spent in the archive, authenticating pieces and teaching Ji-Hoon the fundamentals of cipher reading. Afternoons, she works on her own research. Ji-Hoon has given her access to his extensive network of contacts, and she's been able to verify leads on encoded texts she'd thought lost forever. Evenings, they share dinner and conversation that ranges from academic to personal to comfortable silence. Victor remains a distant threat, monitored but not contained. Ji-Hoon's team reports his movements daily, to his office, to his lawyer's firm, to upscale restaurants and exclusive clubs. He's making no obvious moves toward Elena, but the surveillance is unnerving in its own way. He knows he's being watched, and he doesn't seem to care. He's planning something, Elena says one evening over dinner. They've fallen into the habit of eating together in Ji-Hoon's dining room, the city glittering beyond the windows. Victor doesn't accept defeat. He's waiting for an opening. Then we make sure he doesn't find one. Ji-Hoon refills her wine glass, his movements practiced and elegant. My people are building a financial case against him. Paper trails connecting him to laundering operations, shell companies, questionable transactions. It's slow work, but it's solid. How long? Months maybe. But when we move, it will be decisive. He studies her across the table. You're safe here, Elena. I need you to believe that. I'm trying, she says honestly. It's just, 2 years of hypervigilance doesn't turn off overnight. Then we give it time. Hoon's expression gentles. In the meantime, I have something I'd like to show you. If you're willing to trust me. The next afternoon, Hoon drives them out of Seoul in a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. Elena watches the cityscape give way to suburbs, then countryside, curiosity warring with residual caution. Where are we going? She asks. To where it started. Hoon's hands are steady on the wheel, but there's tension in his shoulders. I've never shown anyone this place. But I think you should see it. They drive for another 30 minutes before turning onto a private road that winds up a hillside. The pavement becomes gravel, then dirt, and finally Hoon stops the car in front of a stone archway half hidden by overgrown vegetation. This was my family's estate, he says quietly. Elena steps out of the car and immediately feels the weight of history. Beyond the archway, she can see the remnants of a traditional Korean house. Burned beams, crumbled stone foundations, walls that once held life now open to the sky. Nature has begun reclaiming it, vines crawling over ruined walls, wildflowers growing through cracks in courtyards. It's beautiful and heartbreaking in equal measure. Hoon leads her through the ruins, pointing out what used to be where. That was the main hall where my father held meetings with other prosecutors and politicians fighting corruption. There was the library where my mother taught me to read classical Chinese. And there, he stops in front of a relatively intact stone structure, half buried in the hillside. That was the vault. The old smuggler's tunnel I told you about. Elena approaches the entrance carefully. The stone door has been forced open, hinges rusted, but the passage beyond is dark and forbidding. I stayed down there for 6 hours, Hoon says, his voice distant, listening to everything burn, wondering if anyone would come. When I finally came out, the house was gone and so was my family. He's quiet for a moment. I was found 2 days later by my uncle, my father's brother who lived in Seoul. He took me and gave me a new life. But I never forgot this place. What was taken from me here? Can you even imagine being 12 years old, trapped underground, listening to your whole world burn? Elena moves to stand beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touch. Is that when you decided to reclaim what was lost? Not immediately. For years I just existed. Went to school, did what I was told, tried to be normal. But the anger never went away. The sense that my family's destruction should matter, should mean something. Hoon turns to face her. When I was 20, I found out that one of the men responsible for the raid, a corrupt police official who'd taken bribes to look the other way, was living comfortably in Busan. He'd retired with a full pension and a collection of artifacts he'd looted from estates like ours. What did you do? I broke into his house and took everything. Every piece. Then I spent the next 2 years figuring out where each item belonged and returning them anonymously. His lips curve in something that's not quite a smile. That's when I realized this was what I was meant to do. Not revenge exactly. Restoration. Taking back what was stolen and putting it where it belonged. Elena looks at the ruins around them, understanding now why Hoon approaches his work with such intensity. This isn't just a hobby or a business. It's a mission born from trauma, channeled into something that almost looks like justice. Your mother would be proud, she says quietly. Hoon's eyes meet hers, and for a moment his carefully maintained control slips. She sees grief there and determination and something else, something that makes her pulse quicken. I haven't been here in 5 years, he admits. I kept telling myself I'd come back when I'd recovered enough pieces, done enough good to balance what was taken. But there's never enough, is there? No amount of artifacts returned can bring back what I lost. No, Elena agrees. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is that you're preventing other families from losing their heritage. You're fighting the same corruption that destroyed your parents. Is that how you see it? Hoon's gaze is intense. Not as criminal activity, but as a continuation of my father's work? I'm starting to, Elena admits. I still think there are ethical lines we shouldn't cross. But I also think the system is broken, and sometimes broken systems need people willing to work outside them to create real change. She takes a breath. Your mother was right. Scholarship requires courage. So does justice. They stand there among the ruins and Elena feels something shift between them. A deeper understanding, maybe. Or the recognition that they're both trying to reclaim pieces of themselves that were stolen. Hoon reaches out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucks a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers are warm against her skin. Thank you for coming here with me, he says. Thank you for trusting me enough to show me. The moment stretches, charged with possibility. Elena's breath catches as Hoon's hand lingers against her cheek. She should step back, should maintain professional boundaries, should remember that this is an alliance born from necessity, not. Hoon's phone shatters the moment with an urgent buzz. He pulls back, checking the screen, and his expression hardens. "We need to get back to Seoul," he says. "Now." "What's wrong?" "One of my sources just contacted me. There's an emergency auction tonight. A private collector's estate being liquidated quickly. Several Korean pieces listed, including something that matches the description of a royal seal that's been missing since 1910. His eyes glitter with intensity. "If it's real, Elena, it's one of the most significant pieces of Korean imperial history still in private hands. And if it's fake? Then someone is about to pay a fortune for worthless metal, and I need to make sure that someone isn't me." He's already moving toward the car. "I need your eyes on this. Tonight." They drive back to Seoul faster than is probably legal, Hoon on the phone the entire time making arrangements in rapid Korean. Elena's mind races ahead, thinking through what authentication markers a royal seal might carry, what cipher patterns or hidden marks could verify its legitimacy. By the time they reach the penthouse, there's a dossier waiting, photographs of the seal, provenance documentation that looks suspiciously clean, and historical records that Hoon's people have pulled together in less than 2 hours. Elena spreads everything across the archive table and begins her analysis. The seal is stunning, gold and jade, carved with intricate imperial dragons and phoenixes. According to the documentation, it belonged to King Gojong and was used to authenticate royal decrees during the final years of the Korean Empire before Japanese annexation. But something bothers her. "The provenance chain is too perfect," she says, tracing the paper trail. From royal treasury to Japanese collector in 1910, then through his family to the current estate. No gaps, no questions, every transfer documented. "That's a good thing, isn't it?" Hoon leans over her shoulder, close enough that she can smell his cologne, something subtle and expensive. "In theory. But cultural property stolen during occupation periods is usually messier. Documents get destroyed, ownership gets obscured, there are gaps and uncertainties." Elena points to the photographs. "This reads like someone went back and created an ideal provenance chain. And look here, the seal marks on the base." She pulls up a reference image on her tablet, comparing it to the auction photographs. Royal seals from this period should carry specific authentication marks, cipher patterns that identify which royal workshop created them and which specific seal in a set it represents. "Can you get me higher resolution images of the base?" Hoon makes a call. 10 minutes later, new photographs arrive, zoomed in on every angle of the seal. Elena examines them with mounting unease. There are cipher marks, but they're wrong. The pattern suggests this seal was created in 1905, but the documentation claims it was in use until 1910. And the workshop identifier doesn't match any of the known royal seal makers from that period. So it's a forgery? Or it's a real seal from a different set that's been misidentified, possibly deliberately. Elena sits back, frustrated. "I can't authenticate this from photographs alone. I'd need to examine the actual piece, check the jade quality, verify the gold content, look for tool marks and aging patterns." Hoon is quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he makes another call, voice clipped and authoritative. When he hangs up, he turns to her with determination in his eyes. "We're going to the auction. Not to bid, to observe. And if possible, to get you close enough to the seal to make a proper assessment." "Is that safe?" "Victor. Will be monitored the entire time. Besides, this is a private auction. Very exclusive, very secure. Only verified collectors and their representatives allowed." Hoon's lips curve. "And as of 10 minutes ago, you're my art consultant." Elena should be nervous about leaving the penthouse, about being out in public where Victor might spot her. But the academic in her is already buzzing with anticipation. A royal seal from King Gojong's reign. If it's authentic, it's the kind of piece that could reshape understanding of late Korean imperial history. "When do we leave?" she asks. Hoon's smile widens. 1 hour. And Elena? We're something elegant. This is the kind of crowd that notices details. What follows is a whirlwind of preparation. Hoon provides her with a designer dress from somewhere in the penthouse. Black silk that fits perfectly, elegant without being flashy. He even has jewelry, though Elena refuses anything too ostentatious and settles for simple diamond studs. She keeps her pendant, though, tucked beneath the dress's neckline. A reminder of why she's really doing this. When she emerges from her room, Hoon is waiting in a tailored suit that makes him look even more dangerous than usual. His eyes sweep over her with appreciation that sends heat through her chest. "You look like you belong in this world," he says. I'm faking it. Everyone is. He offers his arm. Shall we? The auction is held in a private gallery in Gangnam, the kind of place where wealth whispers instead of shouts. Security is tight. Metal detectors, bag checks, credentials verified at multiple points. Elena's heart pounds as they pass through each checkpoint, half expecting Victor to materialize from the shadows. But inside it's just collectors. Wealthy, cultured, moving through the preview room with the practiced eye of people who buy art the way others buy groceries. And there, on a raised platform under museum-quality lighting, sits the royal seal. Elena approaches it slowly, aware of Hoon at her shoulder, his presence both protective and professional. She examines the seal from every angle the display case allows, her trained eye cataloging details. The jade is genuine, Joseon period nephrite, the right quality and color. The gold shows appropriate aging patterns. The carving is exquisite, exactly the level of craftsmanship you'd expect from royal workshops. But those cipher marks still bother her. Can you get it out of the case? She murmurs to Hoon. During preview? Not without causing a scene. He's scanning the room, always aware of potential threats. But I have another option. He leads her to a gallery attendant, speaks briefly in Korean. Money changes hands, a lot of it from the thickness of the envelope. The attendant nods and disappears through a staff door. What did you just do? Elena asks. Bought us a private viewing after the auction ends. Win or lose the bid, we get 30 minutes alone with the seal. Hoon's expression is satisfied. Sometimes the direct approach is best. They spend the next hour observing the auction itself, watching pieces go for astronomical sums. The seal comes up last, presented with appropriate reverence. The bidding is intense, two collectors driving the price higher and higher. Hoon doesn't participate, just watches with calculated interest. The seal finally sells for an amount that makes Elena's eyes water. The winner is a stern-faced woman who looks like she buys countries for breakfast. But their private viewing is still arranged. After the crowd clears, they're led to a back room where the seal sits on an examination table, and Elena finally gets to hold history in her hands. She examines it with every tool Hoon has brought: magnifying glass, UV light, digital microscope. She traces the cipher patterns, photographs them, runs them through her authentication app. And slowly certainty builds. It's real, she says finally, setting the seal down with reverent care. But the provenance documentation is deliberately misleading. This isn't King Gojong's decree seal, it's his personal correspondence seal, used for private letters to family and trusted advisors. Much rarer, actually, and more historically significant. Hoon's eyes sharpen. Why would someone misidentify it? To avoid scrutiny, maybe? Decree seals are well documented, every museum and collector knows what they should look like. But personal seals? There are fewer records, less comparison material. It's easier to obscure stolen property when the exact specifications aren't publicly known. So whoever sold this knew exactly what they had and deliberately obscured its true significance. Which means the buyer just paid top dollar for something without understanding its real value. Elena meets Hoon's gaze. What are you going to do? Hoon is quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he pulls out his phone. I'm going to contact the buyer through back channels and offer to authenticate her purchase, he says. When I explain what she actually bought, she'll realize the provenance is compromised. That creates an opening for negotiation. You're going to steal it from her. I'm going to offer her a fair price for a piece she bought under false pretenses, then ensure it returns to Korea where it belongs. Hoon's smile is sharp. There's a difference. As they leave the gallery, Elena feels the weight of what they've just done settling over her. She's not just authenticating anymore, she's actively participating in Hoon's network, enabling his operations, becoming complicit in the gray market world he inhabits. The thought should bother her more than it does. In the car on the way back to the penthouse, Hoon reaches over and takes her hand. The gesture is simple, comfortable, as natural as breathing. You were brilliant tonight, he says. Elena threads her fingers through his, feeling the warmth of his palm against hers. We make a good team. Yes, Hoon agrees, his thumb tracing circles on her skin. We do. 3 weeks after the auction, Elena stands in a hidden vault beneath one of Hoon's properties in Itaewon. The space is climate-controlled and secure, accessible only through a series of locked doors and biometric scans. It's where Hoon keeps the pieces he's recovered but not yet returned, items awaiting authentication or proper channels for repatriation, or simply the right moment. Today they're examining a collection of scrolls supposedly from the early Joseon dynasty. A seller in Shanghai has offered them for a price that makes even Hoon balk, and he needs Elena to verify whether they're worth pursuing. She's on the fourth scroll when she sees it. The encoding is subtle, so subtle she almost misses it. Hidden in the decorative border are cipher patterns that don't match the document's supposed date. More than that, the patterns themselves are wrong, using a mathematical progression that wasn't developed until the late 19th century. This is fake, she says, looking up at Hoon. And not just a casual fake. Someone went to considerable effort to make this look legitimate. The paper is period appropriate, the calligraphy is expert level, but the cipher system is anachronistic. Hoon moves to her side, studying the scroll. Could it be a legitimate later edition? Someone encoding an older document. The encoding is integrated into the original design, not added after. Whoever created this knew enough about Josian calligraphy and cipher systems to be dangerous, but they made a crucial mistake in the mathematical foundation. Elena's mind races ahead. This isn't just someone trying to sell fakes. This is someone trying to plant fakes in your collection. Why? To discredit you. If you return a forged piece to a museum or temple, claiming it's a recovered treasure, and they discover it's fake. Elena meets his eyes, seeing the implications register. Your entire operation loses credibility. Every piece you've ever returned falls under suspicion. Hoon's expression darkens. Who knows we were considering this collection? Just the seller and, he stops, jaw tightening. Minjun. My second lieutenant. He was the intermediary with Shanghai. Before Elena can respond, alarms blare throughout the vault. Red emergency lights flash, and Hoon's phone erupts with urgent notifications. Breach, he snaps, already moving. Someone's breached the outer perimeter. Elena's blood runs cold. Victor. I don't know. Stay behind me. Hoon pulls open a concealed panel in the wall, revealing a compact weapon. The sight of the gun in his hands should terrify her, but instead Elena feels a strange sense of relief. Whatever's coming, at least they're not defenseless. The vault door, 3-inch steel designed to withstand anything short of explosives, shudders with impact. What? Twice. On the third impact, warning lights flash above the entrance. They're using a battering ram, Hoon says, voice deadly calm. Military grade from the sound of it. He's already pulling Elena toward the back of the vault. There's an emergency exit. It leads to the parking garage. We need to. The vault door explodes inward with a deafening crash, and armed men pour through the opening. 4 of them, wearing tactical gear and moving with military precision. The first one levels a gun at Hoon. Everything happens in seconds. Hoon shoves Elena behind a storage unit, then moves, faster than she would have thought possible. He fires twice and one of the intruders goes down. Returns fire forces him back into cover, bullets sparking off metal shelving. Elena's heart hammers so loud she can barely think. This is real. This is actually happening. One of the intruders circles around the storage units, trying to flank them. Elena sees him before Hoon does, sees the weapon rising and acts on pure instinct. She grabs a heavy bronze statue from a nearby shelf and hurls it with all her strength. It catches the man in the shoulder, throwing off his aim. His shot goes wide and Hoon pivots, taking him down with 2 precise shots. But there are still 2 more and they're coordinating now, using professional tactics to pin Hoon down. Elena hears shouting from beyond the vault entrance. More men coming, or maybe Hoon's security team responding. Then she sees the third intruder taking aim at Hoon from behind a display case, and her world narrows to that single moment. Hoon, she screams. He turns, but he's not going to be fast enough. The intruder's finger tightens on the trigger. Glass explodes above them as Hoon's security team breaks through a skylight Elena hadn't even known existed. 3 men rappel down, weapons drawn, and suddenly the tactical situation shifts. The intruders realize they're outgunned and make for the exit. But not before one of them fires a final shot. The bullet catches Elena in the upper arm, spinning her around. She hits the floor hard, pain exploding through her body in waves. It's like being hit with a hammer made of fire, burning and aching and wrong. Elena. Hoon is beside her in an instant, his hands pressing against her arm, trying to stop the bleeding. His face is pale, eyes wild with something close to panic, the first time she's seen him lose control. I'm okay, she gasps, though she's not sure that's true. The pain is intensifying, her vision swimming. Did they get away? I don't care. Hoon's hands are shaking as he pulls off his jacket and wraps it around her arm, applying pressure. You're bleeding. We need to get you to a hospital. No hospital. They'll have records, Victor will. I have a doctor on call. Private, discreet, already on his way. Hoon's jaw is tight as he lifts her carefully. This is my fault. I should have had better security. Should have anticipated. It's not your fault. Elena grits her teeth against the pain. They were professional. Military trained. This wasn't random. Hoon carries her toward the emergency exit, his security team clearing the way ahead. Minjun, he says, voice flat with certainty. He's been feeding information to someone. That's why they knew exactly when we'd be here, exactly how to breach the vault. Victor. Possibly. Or whoever's trying to plant those forgeries in my collection. They emerge into an underground garage where a car is waiting, engine running. Either way, there's a traitor in my organization and they just tried to kill you. The doctor is already at the penthouse when they arrive, a calm older man who takes one look at Elena's arm and gets to work with professional efficiency. The bullet passed through cleanly, painful but not life-threatening. Still, by the time he's finished stitching and bandaging, Elena feels wrung out and dizzy from blood loss. Hoon hasn't left her side for a second. You saved my life, he says quietly when the doctor has finally left. In the vault. You saw that man before I did. Elena manages a weak smile. We're partners, remember? Partners watch each other's backs. This isn't a partnership anymore, Elena. Hoon's voice is rough, intense. Or maybe it is, but it's more than that. When I saw you go down, when I saw you bleeding. He stops, jaw working. I can't lose you. Not to Victor, not to whoever planted those intruders, not to anyone. The raw emotion in his voice makes Elena's breath catch. She reaches up with her good arm, touching his face. You won't. I'm not going anywhere. You should. Hoon catches her hand, pressing it against his cheek. You should walk away from this, from me, before you get killed. This isn't your fight. Yes, it is. Elena's voice is firm despite her exhaustion. The moment I agreed to work with you, the moment I chose to stay instead of run, it became my fight. I'm not a victim anymore, Hoon. I'm a fighter. And I'm choosing to fight beside you. Hoon leans down, resting his forehead against hers. You could have died today. But I didn't. We didn't. Elena closes her eyes, feeling the warmth of him, the solid reality of his presence. What we did was survive. Together. And now we're going to find out who sent those men and make sure they never threaten us again. When she opens her eyes, Hoon is looking at her with such intensity it steals her breath. Then he kisses her, gently at first, mindful of her injuries, but deepening when she responds with her own fierce need. It's a kiss that tastes of blood and adrenaline and something deeper, something that's been building between them since that first night in the nightclub. Elena's good hand tangles in his hair, pulling him closer, and Hoon's arm wraps carefully around her waist. They break apart finally, both breathing hard. That was... Elena starts. Overdue, Hoon finishes. Despite everything, the pain in her arm, the danger therein, the uncertainty of what comes next, Elena laughs. Very overdue, she agrees. Hoon helps her to her room, tucking her into bed with a gentleness that contrasts with the deadly competence he showed in the vault. He sits on the edge of the mattress, his hand finding hers. Get some rest, he says. I'm going to find out who did this. And then I'm going to end it. The cold promise in his voice should frighten her. Instead, Elena feels only grim satisfaction. When you do, she says, I want to be there. Hoon's lips curve in something that's not quite a smile. Of course. Partners. Partners, Elena agrees and lets exhaustion finally pull her under. But even in sleep, her mind works on the problem. The forged scrolls. The attack. Minjun's betrayal. And somewhere beneath it all, Victor's influence, pulling strings and waiting for his chance. The game has changed. The stakes are higher. And Elena realizes with absolute clarity that there's no going back now. She's committed. To this fight. To this life. To the dangerous man who's somehow become more than an ally. What would you do if you realized the protection you sought had become the partnership you needed? Elena wakes to find Hoon gone and 3 of his security team stationed outside her room. Her arm throbs with a deep, persistent ache that the painkillers only partially dull. When she checks her phone, the encrypted one Hoon gave her, there's a single message. Stay put. Handling situation. She tries. She really does. But after 2 hours of lying in bed while her mind races through possibilities and scenarios, Elena gives up and makes her way to the archive. The collection looks different now. Where before she'd seen beauty and history, now she sees vulnerability. Every piece here is a target, a potential leverage point for whoever wants to destroy what Hoon has built. She's examining the forged scrolls from yesterday when she hears voices from the penthouse's main room. Hoon's voice, low and dangerous. And another voice she recognizes, Minjun, Hoon's second lieutenant, the man who'd been handling the Shanghai deal. Elena moves quietly to the archive door, listening. Telling you I had no idea the scrolls were fake. Minjun sounds desperate. The seller came highly recommended, his credentials were impeccable. Credentials you didn't properly vet. Hoon's voice is ice. Credentials that were probably fabricated by whoever set this whole operation up. I'm sorry, I should have been more careful, but I swear I didn't know about the attack. Then explain how they knew exactly when we'd be in the vault. Explain how they had the door codes, the security protocols, the timing down to the minute. A pause, heavy with implication. Only 3 people knew Elena and I would be there yesterday. Me, her, and you. Silence. Then Minjun's voice, shaking. You think I sold you out? I think someone did. And right now you're the only explanation that makes sense. Elena steps into the hallway, her injured arm cradled against her chest. Both men turn at her approach, Hoon's expression flashing from fury to concern, Minjun's face pale and drawn. Elena, you should be resting. I should be here, she interrupts. This affects me too. She looks at Minjun, studying his body language with the analytical eye she's developed over weeks of working in Hoon's world. When did Victor approach you? Minjun's eyes widen. I don't know what. Don't lie. Elena's voice is steady despite her racing heart. The attack yesterday wasn't random. The forged scrolls weren't just about money. Someone is systematically trying to destroy Hoon's credibility and operations. Someone who knows how he works, who understands his network, who has the resources to hire professional soldiers. She takes a step closer. Victor Kane has all of those things. And he has one more thing, a reason to want me dead and Hoon destroyed for protecting me. Minjun's face crumbles. He said he'd kill my sister. He had photographs of her, knew where she worked, what route she took home every night. He said if I didn't give him information, he'd make her disappear. Hoon's expression could cut glass. How long? 3 weeks. Since right after you brought Dr. Vance here. Minjun's hands shake. He contacted me through encrypted messages, always careful, never traceable. He wanted to know your routines, your security protocols when you'd be vulnerable. I tried to feed him useless information at first, but then he sent me a video of my sister walking home and his voice breaks. I couldn't let him hurt her. So you told him about the Shanghai deal. About the vault. Hoon's voice is deadly quiet. You gave him everything he needed to stage the attack. I didn't know he'd send killers. I thought he just wanted to know where Dr. Vance was, maybe to serve legal papers or... You thought a man who's violated restraining orders and pulled a knife in a crowded nightclub wanted to serve legal papers? Elena's laugh is bitter. You didn't think. You panicked, and you chose your sister over everyone else in this organization. I'm sorry. Minjun drops to his knees, traditional Korean supplication. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything to make this right. Hoon stares down at him and Elena can see the war playing out behind his eyes. Mercy versus pragmatism. Trust versus necessity. She knows what the brutal calculus of his world demands. Traitors don't get second chances, not when lives are at stake. But she also knows that Minjun's sister is an innocent caught in Victor's web, just like Elena herself was not so long ago. Get up, Hoon says finally, voice hard. You don't grovel. You fix this. Minjun rises slowly, hope and fear warring in his expression. Your sister gets moved to a safe house today. One of my properties, full security until this is resolved. Hoon steps closer and there's steel in every word. You are going to continue feeding Victor information, but now it's going to be information we control. We're going to use you to set a trap, and when Victor walks into it, we're going to end this permanently. Understand? Yes. Minjun's voice is hoarse. Yes, I understand. If you betray us again, your sister's safety won't matter because neither of you will live long enough to worry about it. Hoon's expression doesn't waver. I don't give third chances, Minjun. Remember that. After Minjun leaves, Elena turns to Hoon. That was mercy. That was strategy. But his expression softens slightly. And yes, maybe a little mercy. His sister doesn't deserve to die for his mistakes. Neither did I. Elena moves closer, drawn by the gravity that's been pulling them together since this all began. Thank you for being more than just a crime lord making cold calculations. Hoon's hand comes up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. You make me want to be more than that. You make me want to be the man my parents raised me to be before everything burned. The vulnerability in his admission makes Elena's chest tight. She leans into his touch, feeling the warmth of his palm against her skin. We're going to use Minjun to set a trap for Victor, she says. What's the plan? Hoon's lips curve into something predatory. We're going to give Victor exactly what he wants. A chance to get to you. But on our terms, on our ground, with every advantage stacked in our favor. Using me as bait. With your permission. I won't risk you unless you agree. Elena thinks of the bullet wound in her arm, still throbbing despite the medication. Thinks of 2 years running, hiding, living in fear of the man who promised to hunt her forever. I agree, she says. But I want to help design the trap. Victor knows how I think, how I move. If we're going to lure him in, we need to make it convincing. Over the next several days, they construct an elaborate deception. Minjun feeds Victor information about a vulnerable moment. Elena will be attending a private gallery opening in 2 weeks, one of the legitimate art events Hoon occasionally uses for networking. Security will be present but light, focused on protecting the artwork rather than individuals. The perfect opportunity for someone to approach her quietly, to pull her aside into a back room, to finish what was started in the nightclub. But what Victor won't know is that every person in that gallery will be part of Hoon's network. Every exit will be monitored. And Elena will be wearing a tracking device so sophisticated that they'll know her location down to the centimeter. It's risky, Hoon's head of security, a severe woman named Ji-Hoon, says during one planning session. If Victor suspects a trap, he won't show. Or worse, he'll show with enough firepower to overwhelm our people. He won't suspect, Elena says with certainty. Victor's fatal flaw is his arrogance. He thinks he's smarter than everyone else, always 10 steps ahead. The idea that I might deliberately expose myself as bait won't occur to him. He'll see an opportunity and take it. And if you're wrong? Ji-Hoon challenges. Then I'll be in a room full of trained operatives with weapons and a direct line to Hoon. Elena meets her gaze steadily. I've spent 2 years being afraid. I'm done with that. It's time to be dangerous instead. Ji-Hoon's expression shifts, something like respect flickering in her eyes. Good. Fear makes you a victim. Anger makes you a weapon. The days before the gallery opening are tense. Elena continues her work authenticating pieces, but her mind is constantly on the upcoming confrontation. Hoon, meanwhile, has become increasingly protective, never letting her leave the penthouse, always having someone stationed nearby, checking in constantly. One evening, she finds him in his private office, surrounded by surveillance photos of Victor. Her ex-husband looks the same as always, handsome, polished, the kind of man who could charm anyone who didn't know what lay beneath the surface. You're obsessing, Elena says from the doorway. Hoon looks up and she sees the exhaustion in his face. I'm preparing. You're wearing yourself out. She crosses to him, taking his hand and pulling him up from his desk. Come on. You're no good to anyone if you collapse from stress. She leads him to the living room, to the massive windows overlooking Seoul's glittering nightscape. The city sprawls beneath them, millions of lives playing out in the glow of neon and streetlights. Tell me something true, Elena says quietly. Hoon looks at her, questioning. Something real. Not about the plan, not about Victor, not about strategy. Just, something true. He's quiet for a long moment. Then, I'm terrified of losing you. The raw honesty in his voice makes Elena's breath catch. Not just because you're important to my work, he continues. Not just because you're brilliant or talented or uniquely qualified to authenticate my collections. I'm terrified because somewhere in the past few weeks, you've become the most important thing in my world, and I don't know how to protect you without turning you into a prisoner. Elena turns to face him fully, her uninjured hand reaching up to touch his jaw. You protect me by trusting me. By letting me be your equal instead of something fragile you need to keep in a glass case. You were shot because of me. I was shot because of Victor, because he's a monster who won't let go. Not because of you. She steps closer, closing the distance between them. You've given me something I haven't had in years, Hoon. You've given me power. The ability to fight back. The resources to become someone Victor should fear instead of someone who fears him. Hoon's hands settle on her waist, gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. Is that what you want? To become someone he fears. I want to become someone who never has to run again. Someone who chooses her own life instead of living in the shadows of someone else's violence. Elena meets his gaze directly. I want to become who I was always meant to be before Victor tried to break me. You were never broken, Hoon says fiercely. Wounded, yes. Traumatized, certainly. But never broken. You're the strongest person I know, Elena. You survived 2 years of hell, and instead of letting it destroy you, you turned it into determination. The words settle into Elena's chest like warmth, like healing. She rises on her toes and kisses him, Deeper this time than that first kiss in her bedroom, more certain, more deliberate. Hoon responds immediately, one hand sliding up to cup the back of her head while the other remains careful around her injured arm. The kiss turns heated, urgent, all the tension and fear and wanting of the past weeks finding release. When they finally break apart, both breathing hard, Elena sees desire and restraint warring in Hoon's expression. "Your arm is fine," she interrupts. "I'm fine. I'm here, I'm alive, and I'm choosing this. Choosing you." Hoon searches her face, looking for doubt or hesitation. Finding none, he kisses her again, softer this time, reverent. "Then come with me," he murmurs against her lips. He leads her to his bedroom, a space she hasn't been invited into before. It's surprisingly understated for a man of his resources, all clean lines and dark wood, dominated by a massive window wall that frames the city lights. Tasteful art decorates the walls, and Elena recognizes several pieces from Korean artists she's studied. What follows is tender despite the urgency between them, Hoon's hands careful around her injury but hungry everywhere else. They map each other's scars, his from the fire that destroyed his childhood, hers from Victor's violence, and find something precious in the ruins. Afterward, Elena lies in Hoon's arms, watching the city glow beyond the windows. His fingers trace idle patterns on her shoulder, and she feels safer than she has in years. "In another life," Hoon says quietly, "we might have met differently. You as a professor, me as, I don't know, something legitimate. In another life, we might have been too comfortable to understand each other." Elena shifts to look up at him. "Our damage is what makes us fit. We both know what it means to lose everything. We both know what it takes to rebuild from ashes." Poetic. But Hoon's smiling. "I'm a scholar. We're allowed to be poetic sometimes." Elena settles back against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. 4 more days until the gallery opening. 4 more days, Hoon agrees, his arm tightening around her. And then this ends. Elena closes her eyes, letting herself believe it. 4 more days and Victor's reign of terror will be over. 4 more days and she can finally stop looking over her shoulder. 4 more days until freedom. She just has to survive them first. The morning of the gallery opening dawns cold and clear. Elena wakes to find Hoon already gone, a note on his pillow. Final security check. Stay in the penthouse. Back by noon. She should feel nervous. Instead, she feels almost calm, the eerie stillness that comes before a storm, when the air turns electric and possibilities narrow to a single inevitable point. Elena spends the morning preparing. Ji-Hoon arrives with the tracking device, a tiny chip that will be embedded under Elena's skin near her collarbone, invisible and undetectable to anyone without medical scanning equipment. "This is going to hurt," Ji-Hoon warns. "I've been shot recently. I think I can handle a small chip." Ji-Hoon's lips quirk in something that might be a smile. "You've changed since you first arrived here. More edge. More steel." "I had to." Elena watches as Ji-Hoon prepares the injection site. "When I came here I was still running. Now I'm standing my ground." "Good. Runners die tired. Fighters die on their feet." The chip goes in smoothly, a sharp pinch and then a deeper ache. "There. You're tracked within a 3-meter radius anywhere in Seoul." After Ji-Hoon leaves, Elena examines herself in the mirror. The woman staring back looks nothing like the terrified academic who stumbled into Hoon's arms 6 weeks ago. Her hair is different, styled with confidence rather than hastily thrown up. Her posture is straighter, her gaze steadier. Even the healing bullet wound in her arm feels like a badge earned rather than a weakness. She thinks of Victor and feels not fear but cold determination. Tonight it ends. Hoon returns exactly at noon as promised. But his expression is troubled. "What's wrong?" Elena asks immediately. "I found something." He pulls out a folder, spreading documents across the dining table. "My financial team has been digging into Victor's recent transactions, looking for leverage we can use to guarantee his arrest. They found connections to a Russian organization, not just money laundering but something bigger. Arms deals." Elena. "Victor's been brokering weapons sales through his legitimate business as cover." Elena's blood runs cold. "That's federal-level crime. International crime. Which is why I've already contacted a friend in the National Intelligence Service. If we can catch Victor in the act tonight, get him on recording attempting to harm you, it becomes the evidence needed to flip him. He'll be facing decades in prison, possibly international charges. He'll give up everyone in his network to try to reduce his sentence. It's brilliant, brutal strategy, using Victor's own paranoia and violence to destroy him. But something in Hoon's expression suggests there's more. What else? Elena prompts. Hoon hesitates, and that alone is concerning. He's never been hesitant with her before. The Russian organization Victor's connected to? Hoon's jaw tightens. They're the same group that funded the raid on my family's estate. The same organization my father was investigating when he was killed. The words hang in the air like a bomb waiting to detonate. Oh my God, Elena breathes. Victor is connected to the people who destroyed your family? Indirectly. He wasn't involved 20 years ago, he would have been too young. But his employer, his contacts, the network he operates in, it's all connected to the same syndicate. Hoon's hands clench into fists on the table. Which means tonight isn't just about protecting you or getting justice for what he's done. It's about closing a circle that's been open for 20 years. Elena can see the weight of it settling over him, the realization that his quest for cultural repatriation and his need to protect her have somehow converged into a single point of vengeance. Hoon, she says carefully, we need to be smart about this. If you're emotionally compromised. I'm not. But his voice is tight. I've spent 2 decades learning to separate emotion from strategy. Tonight won't be about revenge. It will be about justice, about ensuring Victor can never hurt anyone again, and about finally holding the people responsible for my family's death accountable. Elena studies his face, seeing the layers of old pain beneath the controlled exterior. You don't have to be strong all the time. Not with me. Something in Hoon's expression cracks. He reaches for her, pulling her into his arms with a fierceness that speaks of desperation held barely in check. I can't lose you tonight, he says against her hair. I can't. If something goes wrong, if Victor gets past our security, if... He won't. Elena holds him tighter. We've planned for every contingency. We have advantages Victor doesn't know about, resources he can't match, and a network of people who actually care about protecting me instead of just controlling me. We're going to win, Hoon. Promise me something. He pulls back enough to look into her eyes. If it comes down to your safety versus catching Victor, you run. You get out, you disappear, and you let me handle him. Hoon. Promise me, Elena. She wants to argue, wants to insist that she's not the kind of person who abandons her allies when things get dangerous. But she sees the fear in his eyes, the bone-deep terror of losing someone else he loves. The realization settles over her with startling clarity. Somewhere in the past 6 weeks, this arrangement has become something much deeper than protection or partnership. They've fallen for each other, 2 broken people finding wholeness in shared damage and shared purpose. I promise, she says quietly, but only if you promise the same. If it comes down to your safety versus revenge, you let Victor go. You come back to me. Hoon's thumb traces her jaw. I promise. They seal it with a kiss that tastes of promises and fear and determination. The afternoon passes in final preparations. Elena is fitted with a wire, hidden, sophisticated, designed to capture every word Victor says when he approaches her. Ji-Hoon runs through hand signals, emergency protocols, extraction procedures. By the time evening arrives and Elena is dressing for the gallery opening, she feels like a weapon being loaded and aimed. The dress Hoon selected for her is elegant. Deep blue silk that whispers against her skin, sophisticated enough for the art world crowd but allowing freedom of movement. The tracking chip under her collarbone is invisible, the wire undetectable. She studies herself in the mirror one last time and sees not a victim waiting to be saved, but a hunter setting a trap. Can you even imagine the moment when you transform from prey to predator? Hoon appears in her doorway, devastating in a tailored suit. For a moment they just look at each other, and Elena sees everything they're not saying reflected in his eyes. Ready? He asks. Ready, she confirms. The gallery is in a converted industrial space in Seoul, all exposed brick and dramatic lighting. As Elena and Hoon arrive, she can see the setup is perfect, elegant enough to be believable, but with clear sight lines that will allow Hoon's security team to track every movement. The art on display is actually from Hoon's collection, pieces he plans to return to Korean institutions, given a temporary public showing before their repatriation. There's a beautiful irony in that, Elena thinks. Victor will walk into a trap surrounded by the very cultural heritage Hoon has dedicated his life to protecting. Guests begin arriving, all of them vetted, all of them part of the network. They play their parts perfectly, moving through the space with wine glasses and quiet conversations, creating the illusion of a legitimate event. Elena circulates, acutely aware of Hoon's presence always in her peripheral vision. He's never more than 20 feet away, positioned where he can reach her in seconds if needed. An hour passes. Then 2. Elena starts to wonder if Victor won't take the bait after all, if his paranoia will override his obsession. Then she sees him. He's across the gallery, dressed impeccably as always, charm radiating off him like cologne. He's talking to someone, making small talk, blending in, playing the role of legitimate art enthusiast. But his eyes keep sliding to Elena, calculating, predatory. Elena's heart rate spikes, but she keeps her expression neutral. She moves deeper into the gallery, toward a back section where several smaller pieces are displayed. The trap is being set. Now Victor just needs to walk into it. She's studying a particularly beautiful celadone vase when she senses him behind her. Elena. Victor's voice is smooth, familiar, nauseating. It's been too long. She turns slowly, every muscle coiled tight despite her outward calm. Victor. I'd say it's good to see you, but we both know I'd be lying. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. So cold. And here I was hoping we could talk like civilized people. Civilized people don't pull knives in nightclubs. That was a misunderstanding. I just wanted to talk to explain. To explain how you violated a restraining order 17 times? To explain the 2 years I've spent running from you? Elena's voice is steady, but she can feel Hoon's presence somewhere nearby, listening to every word through the wire. There's nothing to explain, Victor. You're an abuser who can't accept that your victim escaped. Victor's mask slips for just a second, and she sees the rage beneath. You think you've escaped? You think hiding behind some Korean gangster makes you safe? I think I have resources you can't match and allies who actually care whether I live or die. Elena takes a step closer, bold despite her racing pulse. I think you've underestimated me for the last time. Have I? Victor's hand moves toward his jacket and Elena's breath catches. Is he actually stupid enough to try something here, surrounded by people? But before he can reach whatever weapon he's carrying, Hoon materializes beside Elena as if conjured from shadows. I wouldn't, Hoon says quietly, his voice carrying deadly promise. Victor freezes, his gaze moving between Elena and Hoon. Ah, the protector. Tell me, Mr. Kim, how much is she paying you for your services? Or is it the other kind of payment she's offering? Hoon's expression doesn't change, but Elena feels the violence radiating off him in waves. Elena is under my protection. That means any threat to her is a threat to me. And I don't respond well to threats. Is that so? Victor's lips curve in a sneer. Big words for a criminal. You think your little empire of stolen art makes you powerful? I have connections that reach much further than your petty Korean network. You mean your connections to the Volkov organization? The arms dealers you've been brokering weapons sales for through your investment firm. Hoon's voice is ice. Yes, I'm aware. What you don't know is that every word of this conversation is being recorded. And standing about 30 feet away is an agent from the National Intelligence Service who has been building a case against Volkov's Korean operations for 2 years. Victor's face goes white. So here's what's going to happen, Hoon continues, his voice dropping lower. You're going to stand here very calmly while my associate approaches. You're going to cooperate with questioning. And you're going to spend the rest of your miserable life in prison, where you can't hurt Elena or anyone else ever again. You can't prove anything. We have financial records. We have communications. We have your own words tonight threatening Elena and admitting to connections with a known criminal organization. Hoon's smile is sharp as broken glass. We have everything we need. Victor's hand twitches toward his jacket again, and this time several of Hoon's security team materialize from the crowd, hands inside their own jackets, position strategic. Don't, Elena says, her voice steady. You've lost, Victor. Accept it with whatever dignity you have left. For a moment, Victor looks like he might try something desperate anyway. His eyes dart around the room, assessing exits, calculating odds. But he's outnumbered and he knows it. This isn't over, he snarls. Yes, Elena says firmly. It is. The NIS agent approaches, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and the bearing of someone who's seen everything. She identifies herself and begins reading Victor his rights in formal Korean, then English. Victor's arrested smoothly, professionally, his hands cuffed behind his back. As security leads him toward the exit, he looks back at Elena one last time. You'll regret this, he says. No, Elena responds. I won't. And as Victor disappears through the gallery doors, something that's been clenched tight in Elena's chest for 2 years finally releases. She's free. Hoon's arm wraps around her waist, steady and warm. Are you all right? Elena leans into him, feeling the solid reality of his presence. I'm perfect. The gallery empties quickly after that, the guests who weren't actually guests disappearing into the night. Soon it's just Elena and Hoon standing among the artifacts, the space echoing and quiet. Did we really just do that? Elena asks. We did. Hoon pulls her fully into his arms. He's going to prison for a very long time, Elena. The weapons charges alone will keep him locked up for decades. Add in the financial crimes, the ties to Russian organized crime, he'll never see freedom again. 3 weeks after Victor's arrest, Elena stands in the lobby of the newly opened Kim Vance Cultural Heritage Institute, watching workmen hang the final pieces of their inaugural exhibition. The space is stunning, a converted historical building in Bukchon-Hanok village, carefully restored to showcase both traditional Korean architecture and modern museum standards. It's taken years of Hoon's careful preparation to reach this moment. The institute is his masterpiece, a legitimate organization dedicated to Korean cultural preservation, funded by his various business interests and operating entirely above board. Every piece in their collection has been meticulously authenticated, properly documented, and legally acquired. Well, mostly legally acquired. Elena smiles at the thought. Some secrets are worth keeping. The centerpiece of the inaugural exhibition is the royal seal they'd authenticated months ago, purchased from the collector after careful negotiation and now on display with full provenance documentation. It's been loaned to the institute by the Korean National Museum, a gesture that establishes their scholarly credentials and strengthens Hoon's network of legitimate cultural contacts. It's perfect, Ji-Hoon says, appearing at Elena's elbow. The former head of security has transitioned into a role as the institute's operations director, trading tactical gear for business suits. The Minister of Culture will be impressed. Let's hope so. Tonight is the institute's grand opening, a black-tie gala designed to attract government officials, museum directors, cultural leaders, and potential donors. It's Hoon's formal debut as a legitimate heritage preservationist, the culmination of everything he's worked toward. It's also, Elena thinks with a chill, the perfect target for anyone who wants to destroy what Hoon has built. Security? She asks Ji-Hoon quietly. Tighter than the presidential residence. Every guest vetted, every entrance monitored, rooftop positions established. Ji-Hoon's expression is confident. We're ready for anything. Elena nods, but unease prickles at the base of her spine. Victor is in prison, held without bail on multiple federal charges. His trial won't begin for months, but the evidence against him is overwhelming. He should be contained, neutralized, no longer a threat. Should be. But Elena has learned not to underestimate Victor Kane's ability to cause damage even from behind bars. Hoon finds her later in the archive, their private workspace behind the public galleries, filled with pieces awaiting restoration or repatriation. He's devastating in a tuxedo, every inch the sophisticated cultural benefactor he's presenting himself as tonight. You're worrying, he observes. I'm being cautious. We've taken every precaution. Hoon crosses to her, hands settling on her waist. Victor is locked up. His organization has been dismantled. The Volkov connections are being systematically eliminated by both Korean and international intelligence. There's no one left who has reason to come after us. Reason and capability are different things. But Elena lets herself lean into his warmth, finding comfort in his solid presence. I'm probably just being paranoid. 2 years of looking over my shoulder doesn't turn off overnight. Then be paranoid. Trust your instincts. They've kept you alive this long. Hoon kisses her forehead. But know that I'm here, my people are here, and we're not going to let anything happen tonight. The gala begins at 7. By 7:30, the institute is packed with Seoul's cultural elite. Elena circulates in an emerald dress that makes her feel simultaneously powerful and slightly ridiculous. She's still getting used to this world of wealth and influence that Hoon navigates so easily. The Minister of Culture arrives with appropriate fanfare, complimenting Hoon on the institute's mission and asking probing questions about provenance and authenticity. Elena handles the scholarly aspects, explaining Cipher authentication and historical documentation with the confidence of someone who's become an expert in precisely this intersection of art and investigation. Dr. Vance, the minister says warmly, your work here is remarkable. I understand you've developed new methodologies for authenticating encoded historical text. With Mr. Kim's support, yes. We're hoping to publish our findings next year and make the methodology available to other institutions. Elena gestures to a nearby display. The cipher patterns we've identified can help verify not just Korean artifacts, but any historical pieces that carry encoded authentication markers. It's all going perfectly. Too perfectly. Elena's unease intensifies. She excuses herself to check the security feeds in Ji-Hoon's command center, a converted office behind the archive. Everything looks normal. Guests mingling, servers circulating with champagne and canapes, security teams in position. Then one of the monitors catches her attention. A delivery van pulling up to the service entrance. Not unusual, catering trucks have been coming and going all evening. But something about the driver's movements sets off alarms in Elena's mind. Too purposeful. Too military. Who approved that delivery? She asks the security officer monitoring the feeds. He checks his tablet. Catering company. They're bringing the dessert course. Did we verify? The security feed goes black. All of them simultaneously. Every camera in the institute cuts to darkness. The blackout lasts 17 seconds. 17 seconds of absolute darkness in which Elena's pulse thunders louder than any alarm. She counts them instinctively, the way she'd once counted footsteps behind her in empty parking lots. When the emergency lights snap on, dim red strips along the baseboards, the lobby is already in motion. Ji-Hoon's voice cuts through her earpiece, calm but edged with steel. Delivery team is hostiles. 4 armed, moving through service corridor toward main hall. Catering uniforms, suppressed weapons. They're heading for the archive. Elena doesn't hesitate. She moves. Hoon meets her halfway across the crowded gallery floor, his tuxedo jacket already discarded, revealing the compact holster beneath his shirt. Guests are starting to murmur, confused by the red glow and the sudden absence of music, but none of them understand yet. Victor, Elena says, the name tasting like old blood. Even from prison he still has reach. Hoon's jaw is set. One of his old Volkov contacts. Probably paid residual debts or threatened family. Doesn't matter. They're here for the seal, and for you. The royal seal. Displayed under bulletproof glass in the center of the main hall, lit like a religious relic. If they take it, they discredit the institute on opening night. If they take Elena, they finish what Victor started. Ji-Hoon appears beside them, already directing teams via hand signals. We have them funneled. 2 choke points, service corridor exit and rear stairwell. We can contain. A muffled pop echoes from behind the archive wall. Glass shatters somewhere deep in the building. They're already inside, Elena realizes. They didn't come for the seal first. They came for the ciphers. The forgeries. The ones she'd identified months ago, the anachronistic scrolls meant to poison Hoon's reputation if ever returned. If those fakes are planted now, amid the chaos of opening night, every piece in the institute could be questioned. Years of work, undone in minutes. Elena meets Hoon's eyes. We end this tonight. No more shadows. He nods once, sharp. Together. They move as one. The archive is already compromised when they reach it. Door ajar, one security guard down but breathing, zip-tied. Inside, 2 armed men in catering black are at the secure cases, one holding a tablet, uploading something. The other turns, pistol rising. Hoon fires first. One shot, center mass. The man drops. The second spins toward Elena, weapon swinging. She doesn't think, she grabs the nearest object, a weighted bronze scholar's weight from the Joseon era, and hurls it with every ounce of strength she's built over months of training with Ji-Hoon. It catches the man in the wrist, the gun clatters. Hoon closes the distance in 2 strides, slamming him to the ground, knee on his throat. Where's the 4th? Elena demands. The man spits blood. Already gone. With your little drive. Everything's already uploading your repatriated treasures, your gray market receipts. By morning, Interpol will have it all. Hoon's expression goes lethal. Who sent you? A wet laugh. You think Victor's the only one who hates you? You stole from the Volkovs for years. You crippled their Korean arm. This is payback with interest. Elena kneels beside the man, voice low. Tell me where the drive is going. Now. He smirks. Too late, doctor. It's live. She sees it then, the open laptop on the table, progress bar at 98%. Her stomach drops. Hoon looks at her. Can you stop it? She moves to the keyboard, fingers flying. The upload is encrypted, routed through multiple VPNs. But the cipher patterns on the screen, subtle geometric watermarks, are familiar. The same anachronistic system she'd caught in the forged scrolls. They used our own authentication app against us, she breathes. They modified it. But they didn't understand the root sequence. Her injured arm aches as she types one-handed, pulling up her original algorithm. She inputs the correction, the true Joseon mathematical progression instead of the planted late 19th century variant. The progress bar freezes at 99.4%. Then reverses. Elena exhales. Got it? Wiping remote copies now. They'll have fragments, but nothing usable. The man on the floor laughs again, until Hoon presses the muzzle of his gun to the man's temple. Last chance, Hoon says quietly. Who else is coming? The man's eyes flick to the ceiling. A beat later, the skylight shatters. The fourth man drops in on a line, silenced pistol already sweeping the room. Ji-Hoon fires from the doorway, catching him mid-air. He falls hard, doesn't get up. Silence. Then the red lights shift to white. Power restored. Guests in the main hall begin to applaud uncertainly, thinking it's part of some dramatic opening performance. Elena stands amid the wreckage of the archive, broken glass, blood on the floor, a royal seal still gleaming untouched in its case. She looks at Hoon. It's over, she says. He holsters his weapon, steps over the bodies and pulls her into his arms, careful of the old scar on her arm, fierce everywhere else. Yes, he murmurs against her hair. It's over. Behind them, Ji-Hoon is already on the phone with cleanup teams and the discreet contacts in the NIS who will make sure this never officially happened. Victor Kane's last echo has been silenced. The gala continues. The minister gives his speech. The seal is admired. No one outside the inner circle ever knows how close the night came to disaster. But Elena knows. And Hoon knows. And that shared knowledge, blood, trust, survival, binds them tighter than any vow. The forgeries. The one she'd identified months ago, the anachronistic scrolls meant to poison Hoon's reputation if ever returned. If those fakes are planted now, amid the chaos of opening night, every piece in the institute could be questioned. Years of work, undone in minutes. Elena meets Hoon's eyes. We end this tonight. No more shadows. He nods once, sharp. Together. They move as one. The archive is already compromised when they reach it. Door ajar, one security guard down but breathing, zip-tied. Inside, two armed men in catering black are at the secure cases, one holding a tablet, uploading something. The other turns, pistol rising. Hoon fires first. One shot, center mass. The man drops. The second spins toward Elena, weapon swinging. She doesn't think, she grabs the nearest object, a weighted bronze scholar's weight from the Joseon era, and hurls it with every ounce of strength she's built over months of training with Ji-Hoon. It catches the man in the wrist, the gun clatters. Hoon closes the distance in 2 strides, slamming him to the ground, knee on his throat. Where's the fourth? Elena demands. The man spits blood. Already gone. With your little drive. Everything's already uploading your repatriated treasures, your gray market receipts. By morning, Interpol will have it all. Hoon's expression goes lethal. Who sent you? A wet laugh. You think Victor's the only one who hates you? You stole from the Volkovs for years. You crippled their Korean arm. This is payback with interest. Elena kneels beside the man, voice low. Tell me where the drive is going. Now. He smirks. Too late, doctor. It's live. She sees it then, the open laptop on the table, progress bar at 98%. Her stomach drops. Hoon looks at her. Can you stop it? She moves to the keyboard, fingers flying. The upload is encrypted, routed through multiple VPNs. But the cipher patterns on the screen, subtle geometric watermarks, are familiar. The same anachronistic system she'd caught in the forged scrolls. They used our own authentication app against us, she breathes. They modified it. But they didn't understand the root sequence. Her injured arm aches as she types one-handed, pulling up her original algorithm. She inputs the correction, the true Joseon mathematical progression instead of the planted late 19th century variant. The progress bar freezes at 99.4%. Then reverses. Elena exhales. Got it? Wiping remote copies now. They'll have fragments, but nothing usable. The man on the floor laughs again, until Hoon presses the muzzle of his gun to the man's temple. Last chance, Hoon says quietly. Who else is coming? The man's eyes flick to the ceiling. A beat later, the skylight shatters. The fourth man drops in on a line, silenced pistol already sweeping the room. Ji-Hoon fires from the doorway, catching him mid-air. He falls hard, doesn't get up. Silence. Then the red lights shift to white. Power restored. Guests in the main hall begin to applaud uncertainly, thinking it's part of some dramatic opening performance. Elena stands amid the wreckage of the archive, broken glass, blood on the floor, a royal seal still gleaming untouched in its case. She looks at Hoon. It's over, she says. He holsters his weapon, steps over the bodies and pulls her into his arms, careful of the old scar on her arm, fierce everywhere else. Yes, he murmurs against her hair. It's over. Behind them, Ji-Hoon is already on the phone with cleanup teams and the discreet contacts in the NIS who will make sure this never officially happened. Victor Kane's last echo has been silenced. The gala continues. The minister gives his speech. The seal is admired. No one outside the inner circle ever knows how close the night came to disaster. But Elena knows. And Ji-Hoon knows. And that shared knowledge, blood, trust, survival, binds them tighter than any vow.